This is something I always wanted to do after I retired. And so I got involved with the Church of the Brethren back in Pennsylvania, and they just run all over. We've been to Pulaski, Virginia, Ahab, Alabama, New York, and now New Jersey. I always was involved in construction, and it's just, I just like doing it. I always wanted to do it. I mean, it was in the back of my mind for years, I says, I really would like to go out, and help somebody that really needs help. When I talk to people back home, they're busy with their lives and they can't understand that why I would run all over the United States here and work for nothing, It's hard for people to understand that. But it's, when people are in need, I'm there to help. It's a blessing upon me, I feel good when I leave here. But sometimes it hurts because I hate to leave, work undone.
I work for Gateway Disaster Response, and we partner with United Way of Monmouth County. So many groups come in through us and many groups come in through United Way. Let me tell you a little bit about the house first. The house was a small 5-bedroom house. I had a detached garage with a 2-bedroom apartment above the garage. Everybody was gone except for me and my wife and my dog Molly. Molly's a big Great Pyrenees. My neighbor calls and he says, Bob, you ready for round 2? The tide's coming in pretty strong. So sure enough, the water was coming in my garage. So I'm taking things, I'm trying to put them up higher, and then we go inside and see how Pamela's doing in the house. So I go in the house and she says, oh, I'm glad you're in because I think I hear water coming in the basement. So I go downstairs with Pamela and sure enough, there's some water coming in the basement, and it's not that big of a deal. It's dripping right by where the sump pump is. So again, we're not really concerned. Now, as we're going back up the stairs, we hear this crash. And the crash is one of the basement windows is totally gone, and the water is cascading into the basement. And it's not just dripping in, it is flowing in, and it's just coming in into the middle of the room. It's just flowing right in, and you can see the water rising in the basement. That's how fast the water's coming in. So I'm going to go get some wood and some more duct tape, and I'm going to fix it. And Pamela says, nope, you can't do that because you're going to get electrocuted because of the electrical outlets down there. Let's just go upstairs, close the door, and just say, well, the basement's gone. So that's what we did. Took some stuff and moved that to higher shelves in the house and things like that. We packed a small bag, got the dog, helped Pamela go across to the apartment. Then I went and carried Molly over, and we're going to just spend the time in the apartment. So we had lost power already because the water hit the electric panel and it blew all the power out. So we just kind of searched around for some candles, and we're just going to spend time waiting for the tide to just go down. We heard this ripping, tearing kind of sound, like wood tearing. You guys that have been doing demo, you know what that sounds like, right? So we heard that, and so I ran to the back door, and the steps leading up to the apartment were gone. They ripped right off. So now we're up there, and there's no way to get down. So now we're just now what are we going to do? And then the chimney ripped down. So now I go out onto the deck, and I look, and I can see the houses around me are just destroyed. There's nothing left of these houses. The storm surge is so strong, it's taking all these broken pieces of the house. I said, I got to find a way for us to survive this. So she says, well, take one of the doors off the hinges. And then she tells me it worked in Titanic. But I have never seen Titanic, so I still don't get the joke. And I'm going to try to get the dog and get my wife, put them on this makeshift surfboard, and go to a house that's behind us and climb up on their deck. The deck ran along their house. There were stairs going to the top floor, and there was sliding glass doors. I figured I could just break into that house and we'd survive going in that house. Now I got to find something. So I go back on the deck, and now the chimney that had ripped off the house is now floating by. It's a wooden chimney. It's closed on 3 sides. It looks kind of like a canoe. So I climb down off the deck again, and I'm standing on the deck, and now I'm holding on like this on the bottom of the deck, but I'm standing in the water. That's how high the water is. And it just rocking. There's no way this is going to work. So I go to climb back up, and I look underneath the garage, and there's no walls left. All the walls of my garage are gone. The only thing holding it up are 2 columns in the center of the garage. And we have kind of like this Wizard of Oz moment where the house just kind of twisted and it was down in the water. And we're thrown down onto our butts in the water, and we get up and we're spitting water and we're struggling to try to find each other. Now, the house is just in the water. It's the top half of the garage. It's the apartment. It's just in the water. And there's a couple feet of water, and this thing is just kind of floating around. So this will work for now. And it's pushing it in the direction that we want to go in. But we're heading towards a tree. So Pamela says, well, when we get to the tree, we'll climb into the tree, and we'll sit in the tree, and we'll wait somebody to come and get us. We weren't going to be able to climb into a tree with my wife and my dog and myself. So sure enough, it smashes into the tree. Now we're thrown into the water. And we're in the water, me, Pamela, and Molly. And Pamela's got Molly on a little leash, and she's holding Molly. And Molly's struggling, and she's fighting, and she's pulling my wife under the water, just under and up and under and up. My wife's drowning, and she's drowning because she's holding on to the dog. So I'm begging with her, you have to let go of the dog. And she refuses. And finally, she just can't hold on anymore. And she lets go, and the current just takes Molly the opposite way than where we were going. So we have to survive. And Molly's gone. It's dark. We can't see her. The smell of gas in the air is incredible. All the electric transformers are exploding. All the houses are destroyed, and all that debris is in the water with us. There's cars floating around, washing machines, dryers. Anything that's in a house is now in the water surrounding us, and we're just getting pelted with all this debris. So now we're trying to get to this other house and climb up on their deck. But we're getting closer to the house that we have to get to, and it was only maybe 150 feet, but it took over 2 hours to do this. We're climbing over debris, and we're crashing into the water and back over. And I always say it's like a bowl of cereal. How when you take the little scoop out, the hole closes up. That's what it was like with all this debris. And then something hit Pam on the back of the head and pushed her under the water, and I couldn't find her. She was gone. So the hitter pushed her under the debris. And so I'm just wedged my body into the debris, and I'm just pushing and just trying to find her. And I was able to reach in and grab her by her hair or her shoulder or something and pull her out. But now I see she's going into shock, and the almost drowning and then getting clunked on the head, it kind of took its toll. So now we're getting close to where we have to go, but the part of our garage that hit the tree and was stuck on the tree now has spun off the tree, and it's coming at us, and it's pushing all that debris at us. So as it comes close to us, we're able to grab onto the deck, and we're holding onto the deck. But we're standing here, and we're kind of holding on to it and just hoping that when it hits this house, we don't get crushed again. Sure enough, it crashed into the house, and we were thrown back into the water. So I kind of grab her and flip over onto this deck of these people's house. Now, the deck was probably in about 3 or 4 feet of water, but it wasn't moving at least. And we get over there, and Pamela's sitting with her back up against the door of the house, and water is covering her legs or her waist and just her upper torso and her head around in the water. And she says, okay, I'm staying right here. I'm not going anywhere else. And I'm like, honey, we have to get inside because I can see now hypothermia and all these things happening. So I leave her there. She's okay. And I go to climb into the house. I climb up the stairs, and I'm looking for some way to break into the house. And I look, and there's candles in the house. The people were home. So I go over to the door, and I knock on the door. Like, knock, knock, company. And the wife opens the door, and she just looks at me and says, where did you come from? And I said, it's me, Bobby, your neighbor. And she said, well, you got to come in. And I said, I have to get my wife. And her face just went expressionless and just, where's your wife? Because there was nothing left outside. So I said, she's downstairs on the deck. So Ed, who's a former Marine, which is a good guy to be around, he ran down the steps and brought Pamela back up. And she was going into shock. And Nicole, the woman, was a nurse. So they stripped her down and put fresh clothes on her, dry clothes, and put her in the bed. And she fell right to sleep. So now Ed and I keep going outside on the deck to see when this tide's going down. It's not going down. And you hear people in the distance are screaming, and they're yelling because they're stuck as well. And about 2 hours later, it says, oh my God, there's a dog out there. And it was Molly. She wound up right by the house we went into, in the driveway, floating on a piece of wood. So I go down to get her, and Ed grabs me by the shoulder. He won't let me go down because the current's too strong. He says, you're going to get sucked out into the bay. But he said, look, the dog isn't going anywhere. Everything's wedged in where she is, so we'll just keep an eye on her. So it was about 2 hours after that, still, that Molly was trapped on this big piece of wood until we were able to get her. So Molly's fine. I'm fine. Pamela's fine. We wait till about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're able to walk out. As we're walking out up the street, I had parked my car a few blocks inland, and there's my car in somebody's front yard and everything, you know. So, but everything worked out fine, right? We're okay. We're safe. We lost absolutely everything. You know, we didn't have. Actually, when we got to Nicole and Ed's house, we took our clothes off. Pamela had to get changed, and I found some clothes on the floor I put on. So we didn't even have our own clothes when we left there. I think I wore the same clothes for about 3 days, and that's all I had that I could put on. But the story, I think, is a really good story, I think, because it gets so good because it's changed so many lives, that storm. The storm changed my life, my family's life, and it's because of people like you guys. For the longest time, people would come by my street and they would just stop, and we called our property the pile. We didn't call it the house because there was no house anymore. It was just a pile of junk. And people would just stop and want to help. And I didn't know why they wanted to help. And I didn't get it. And I said, why do these people just come in and just... but they all had this faith that they shared. You know, they all have this common faith, and that's what brought them here to help. And it changed us. You know, it's... I would never be where I am right now if it wasn't for people like you. I think we started this house about a year ago. It's taken almost a year. Well, over the summer, and our United Way friends were here then as well when we did the foundation of the house. You know, and the funny thing is that the house has taken so much longer than it really needs to take, but it's the only way to do it. You know, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way at this point. You know, I wouldn't. If you could say that, you know, I could have just written a check and my house would be finished, I don't think I'd want that. With United Way, Gateway, all these other groups, and you guys, we're going to be able to move back into our home. And it's because, I think that this house means so much because, you can't cry because you make me cry. But it means so much because we'll be able to look at every room in this house and see your faces and know that this house was built with the love that you guys brought to our home. And that is, it's the most special thing. So, thank you so much.
In the fall of 2012, Hurricane Sandy formed, ravaged the Caribbean, and powered through the mid-Atlantic, bringing high wind, coastal flooding, and even snow at higher elevations. Sandy continued north, merged with another storm caused by the polar jet stream, then pounded ashore on October 29th near Atlantic City as a rare superstorm. The storm combined with a full moon and high tide to amplify record-breaking storm surge and drove seawater into lower Manhattan. Roads, tunnels, and subway lines flooded. Power went out, and residents were left trapped and in the dark. Along the Jersey Shore, trees toppled onto power lines. Fast-moving water flooded streets, and crashing waves destroyed homes that had survived foul weather for decades. The storm shredded iconic landmarks, like the Seaside Heights Boardwalk, leaving shell-shocked residents and a debris-lined beach behind. With more than $68 billion in damages and 286 lives lost in 7 countries, Sandy had left her mark.
Look at this.
They had to break it up to get it out of the street. All of these houses on this street are gone but 2.
In Union Beach, New Jersey, the Sohacki family was unaware that their home would be no match for the powerful storm because the 1940s bungalow had survived nor'easters for nearly 75 years. But as Sandy approached, they started to realize that this one would be different.
I wanted to prepare because the warnings were stronger than any other storm we'd had. This one seemed a lot different, and I just wanted to get some things over next door to my mom's house where it would be safe.
Between the two families, there are 11 animals. Leaving them behind to evacuate would probably not be something that could be easily dealt with. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, with the wind picking up and my concern about the wind against the structure itself, I suggested that it maybe be best that we move the animals and ourselves next door to my mother-in-law's reinforced concrete house.
7 years before, Seth and Karen helped her mom build a new home next door to their bungalow. They built it with concrete because concrete is energy efficient and low maintenance.
It was simple to erect. You stack these blocks up like Legos. You put in reinforcing bars as you stack them, and then once the wall height is reached, you have your wall shape. You pour concrete in, it sets up, and you're finished with an insulated, strong concrete wall.
The concrete home that he built for his mother-in-law was a 3-story home built to current coastal construction standards. By building with insulating concrete forms, he was getting high R value from the insulation that's in the wall assembly. What he was getting in addition to that was the high wind resistance that comes with reinforced concrete. It's really the strongest material you can use for residential construction.
Seth and Karen knew her mother's new home would save money on energy and maintenance, but they never imagined it would mean the difference between life and death by saving them from the storm. Over the course of the evening, the Sohackis watched from the concrete home as their beloved bungalow next door was torn off its foundation by the violent waves.
The waves were getting taller as it was getting near to high tide. The wind was starting to rip pieces of siding off our house.
I looked out the window and saw the cars were gone, and then within a half hour I looked out another window on the other side and realized our house was gone, and that all the houses around us were gone.
Once the storm passed, the Sohackis emerged from their refuge next door to see what was left of their bungalow, and the only thing remaining was the foundation. Everything else around them was destroyed, except for the concrete home.
This town is destroyed. You knew it just by looking at this one street, and just glancing inward up one block, you could see the devastation was everywhere.
It was as if the world had suddenly decided to pick everything up and just put it somewhere else.
Concrete house was fine. The concrete house was standing. It didn't suffer any damage that I could see other than cosmetic to the exterior and the garage doors, which were open.
A storm like this that we never thought could happen can indeed happen. Being in this house was the greatest thing that we could have done, and I'm glad that we had this house to come to next door because I felt utterly secure inside this home. Never take things like this lightly. Always be prepared for the worst.
For 15 years, we've been sharing the tale of two homes that unfolds in every disaster. One home survives and one does not. Seth and Karen's powerful story of resilience tells the tale and its life-saving lesson yet again. We have choices when building and choosing our homes, and we can have it all. Savings, strength, but most importantly, safety and survival.
This August marks 1 decade since Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast of the United States. Travel Television interviewed New Orleans performer Tab Benoit at his home in Houma. He spoke about his nonprofit, Voice of The Wetlands, and the changing environment along the shore. While this interview was recorded several years ago, the concerns raised are still not resolved 10 years after the storm.
Before Katrina, we were more or less an awareness organization trying to get the rest of the country to understand that we were in this kind of situation, and we were in deep trouble here, and trying to show that the reasons that we're gonna have problems is because we're losing land, we're losing our coast. It's not because of weak levees or anything like that. It's because, well, something has to protect those levees, and the marshes and the swamps is what protects levees. That's our real protection. The Voice of the Wetlands is all about let's at least start there and tell us, are we or are we not going to fix the coast of Louisiana? Because if we're not, then all of the money that's being spent in New Orleans to rebuild is being wasted. It's going to flood again. All of the money that people are spending here to invest in this place is going to be wasted because it's not going to stay here. We're losing land at an acre an hour. An acre an hour. Imagine that. So south of Houma, right here, all right? I used to fly airplanes, for oil companies and things like that. I flew over the coast a lot of times. And when I was younger, in my late teens flying, I would take off from the Houma airport and fly 20 miles over marshes and swamps before I got to open water. Now it's 3 miles. That used to be 20 miles of marsh and of land. Now it's 3 miles of land. That's a ungodly amount of land that's gone. All of it's open water. The Gulf is getting closer and closer and closer every day. So we have to know, and it's not just us that's here. You have the biggest port in the country sitting right there in New Orleans. The biggest oil port is sitting down there at Port Fourchon. We have refineries, right below the Ninth Ward in Chalmette that are sitting on shaky ground. They could be wiped out by, if Katrina were to come another 10, 20, 30 miles west, this country would be in peril, from all of the vital things that people rely on us for, and the country relies on us for, that's sitting right here in land that's washing away. None of this makes any sense, no matter which way you look at it. To me, it seems like any country on the planet would protect its livelihood and protect its resources and the things that keep it alive. And in South Louisiana, we have those things, and we've been sitting on top of those things. And those things are washing away, and nobody's talking about it. Like I said, if you start locally, you help globally, and I've learned that from what I did. I started looking for a way to use what I had, my gifts and talents that I had, to go out there and help my backyard. Basically, I lived, I didn't live here. I lived down the bayou before the storms. And my backyard was all marsh and swamp, and it was disappearing every day. And I really looked for how do I go out there and fix that and change that. And the more I dug into it to try to make a difference, the bigger it got. It went from my backyard to now it's a parish problem. Right now, from the parish, it has to go to a state thing. And from the state, it goes to a federal thing. And we have a festival that we have every year here, the second weekend of October, here in Houma, Louisiana, that is all about putting everything together. We invite everybody included, and it's all free. It's all free to get in. I mean, the food and the drink ain't free. That's how we, make money to pay for this thing. But it's not really a fundraiser per se. It's more about we're trying to put everything together. Let's use the things that come from Louisiana that make us unique. Our culture, our music, our food, our atmosphere, our people. We have it on the front lawn of a plantation, and it's a great atmosphere right on a little bayou there. And we invite the politicians. We invite the Corps of Engineers. We invite all the wetlands restoration groups. We invite the oil companies. The people in the seafood business. Everybody around here is invited to come and set up a display and show you what they're doing. or show you what they're not doing. And you can ask questions, you know. You can go straight up to somebody at the Corps of Engineers there at their booth and talk to them and ask questions, you know. And you don't see that any other way. You can't just call the Corps and start asking questions. But around here, we rely on the Corps of Engineers and the information that they have for our very survival. You know, do we uproot our family and our history and our roots and go move somewhere else? Or do we stay? Are we protected? Are we safe to stay here? We don't know. We still don't know. And so our thing is, you know, we're trying to be the voice of the people and the animals and the whole thing here, and trying to put it all together and say, okay, what is going to happen here? If we're not in control of our destiny here, and then tell us who is, and tell us what the answer is. If y'all want to know more about South Louisiana and the swamps and the marshes and the coastline of Louisiana, and you want to try to help to save it, you can go to voiceofthewetlands.com and learn some more about it, and then start digging some more and start digging in other avenues and finding ways for you to jump in there and help us out here. Because by helping us out, you help yourself out. By helping yourself out, you help this country. And this country can't survive without the beautiful Mississippi Delta. That's the bottom line. And that's the way I feel, and a lot of us feel. And it's time for us to step up and protect our biggest resources, such as the Mississippi River and the Mississippi River Delta, which is where we live. So go to voiceofthewetlands.com and come down here to Louisiana and see us. We'll take you for a boat ride, eat some crawfish.
Support Jersey Shore volunteers by following @ShoreVolunteers.